Hello, welcome back to episode 2. We are Likabri in collaboration with Yellow Owl. My partner is Leonardo and I am Crazy D.
Thank you. Hello. I am going to introduce our guest, Simphiwe. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Lorado and Crazy D. I'm glad to be here on your show. I look forward to this interview.
Great. I heard that you studied your BA and now you are currently studying your MA. What's your goal?
My goal is sign language becoming an official language. My research so far focuses on Black deaf individuals' use of sign language, whether it's the same or different. That's what my research is about. I hope to finish at the end of this year.
You know, we're experiencing a pandemic. Have your studies been affected? Were you able to continue? Advise us.
My studies went well. There were some negative aspects, like not being able to meet people. Physical contact and engagement is necessary. I did, however, have enough time to focus on my research and make progress, but research requires contact with people, having a relationship with people, to gather information. It's a must. We were stuck because of lockdown. I was stuck, but I could focus on my research, which was positive, and make progress and communicate with people online.
Perfect.
Do you have many subjects or is it only Black Sign Language? Does it include linguistics, research, and sociology as well? Are there many subjects to choose from or specific elective subjects?
With an MA, you must decide which topic you want to learn or research. And then from there, you can unpack a variety of subjects like sign language or sociology. This is what the research process involves. It's important. You have to choose one topic that you want to do. You must decide if you want to specialize in linguistics, or maybe you want to do sociology or poetry.
Oh.
The research report and review allows you to decide which topic to choose. From there, you can choose any specific topic you want to research and begin the process. My focus is linguistics.
Oh. Oh, that's interesting.
Cool.
Wow. Even during COVID, you've managed to stay positive. I want to ask you if technology has been a barrier or has it been useful. Please explain.
Yes, research usually entails making contact with people and having discussions like with your supervisor. They're supposed to help me and guide me with my studies. Also, attending class and going to the library becomes easier. Unfortunately, I couldn't access university because of lockdown. I was stuck, understand?
Yes.
On the positive side, I'm able to continue with my studies after making contact with people. I can focus.
Oh.
Technology is important because you can research using Google or research different countries doing analysis, and you can achieve this through technology. Without technology, unfortunately, you'll be stuck. It's very important to have technology to access research.
That's interesting.
That's true. What I want to ask is, how long have you been studying for? 3 or 4 years? You're not done yet. Are you still continuing?
Yes, I'm still done, almost done. I'm hoping to finish at the end of this year. A long process is involved in my research. I really hope to finish this year. And then I can announce. Phew.
I'm excited. I can't wait for you to make the announcement. Honestly, I'd also like to study, but there are both negative and positive aspects to it, like being affected by COVID, not being able to attend lectures, and using technology. Honestly, I'm not tech savvy, but I have to learn new ways of doing things. Across the world, everyone is using technology, but my concern is poor people getting access to technology. How does it work? It's sad.
Yes.
How can we solve this? What can we do?
It's the same with people who are far from technology because they cannot afford data or Wi-Fi. Even during lockdown, people couldn't use their computers or their laptops because they can't afford data. It's expensive. Some are fortunate, yes, to afford it. How did you write your exams during lockdown because your supervisor was not there?
Over to you.
Most things are currently done online. Technology is
Yes,
expensive.
yes,
I want the government to establish systems to help impoverished people
yes,
who can't afford to study. They should study for
yes,
free.
yes.
Provide them with Wi-Fi so that they can have access to education. Today we are aware of COVID and we
Yes.
must change. People shouldn't live their lives the way they used to do before. No. We need to adapt and change with the times. But the government is encouraging children to get access to technology and education. People must learn to change as well. You understand?
Yes, I also want to ask for your advice. You are currently studying linguistics. Which careers can one pursue?
Yes, there are several options one has indeed. You can branch into teaching and become a teacher. You can become a lecturer and teach hearing people more about sign language. You can work for the government and teach employees about deaf people and what sign language is about. As you know, SASL is not recognized as an official language in
Not
SA.
yet. Not yet.
Reason being, the government doesn't understand
Yes.
the language. If more deaf people get qualifications, then the government will treat sign language as a real language, making it easy for the government to make it an official language. Right now, we're stuck. Questions arise whether SASL is a real language. What exactly is it? Government is still in doubt.
You're right. That makes sense.
Government is still skeptical. If we gather enough information and evidence from deaf people themselves, then the government will be convinced that SASL is a real language. Understand?
Yes.
Then we can gather more information about our language. Access for us will become easier.
You see, Simphiwe is explaining to us that sign language is not an official language. She explained it clearly. It's interesting. This means that children today must start lobbying for sign language to become an official language. We are now old. What Simphiwe is doing will impact the future generations.
Yes.
For me, I'm excited about sign language. Sign language has many things. Has the country published any information about sign language?
I'm sure.
Yes, we have plenty. We have plenty of published context, like when sign language was first established and so on. But where's all of that recorded? That's what we need for young children to engage with it and still a sense of pride in their own
Yes.
language. It's the same as a Zulu person sharing their stories about their heritage, history, culture, and language. People feel proud about their
Yes.
heritage. The more we feel proud about our language, the more we can present it to others. And not only about pride, but also exclusion. Like right now, we need technology for video connections. We need interpreters for videos. There's so many things that we need. Without it, we won't have access to this information. We won't understand.
yes,
We
yes.
need more access for all people. Parents of deaf children need to communicate with their child using sign language. Yes, for grade 1 children. Or going to interviews. Or for the hospitals using SASL. It will be easy. For example, if I'm pregnant as a deaf person,
It's
I won't be
important.
able to communicate using sign language. I won't. If more nurses learn sign language, that would be perfect, and giving birth will be easy.
About sign language, it has many dialects like black language, like colored language, Indian language, white language. I want to ask, do we have one sign language or many different sign languages?
Yes.
Since SA has 11
Yes,
official
11
languages,
official languages.
so does SASL also have 11?
Let me ask you, do you think Afrikaans people from Cape Town and Afrikaans people from Pretoria, are they the same or different?
They're different.
Different?
I believe
Is it
they're
different?
because Cape Town and Pretoria are both Afrikaans language. However, the structure is different. So some people use oral sign language, others don't. They use sign language structure. For example, some use a distinct sign language, like not English structure, no, a distinct language structure, slang sign language. Adding new signs like English, Xhosa, Zulu, Afrikaans.
Please explain more. Maybe I'm not aware.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, that's good. So, people from Durban and Cape Town, All speak Afrikaans. Yes, all speak one language with different dialects. The same way spoken languages have deep roots or they can be influenced by the city. Now the issue becomes dialect, but it's still one language. For example, it's like a matric exam paper. Everyone is handed the same Afrikaans paper as a first language. Do you think Cape Town, Durban, and Pretoria write the same or different papers?
They're all the
They're all
same.
Just different dialects. The same applies with sign language. All sign languages. Whether black or white, it doesn't matter. All can be understood. All use hands. Understand? All use hands. We all use facial expression, body language. But the community, the culture is a bit different.
Yes, that's
Got
true.
it.
Understand? And the same applies if I meet a white Afrikaans person and we both sign. At first it'll be difficult to understand, but then he'll pick up some signs and
Yes.
we'll both understand.
Yes,
Our
using
language uses
sign language,
hands,
yes.
receptive skills, and body language. We use signing all across SA. You're aware that SA is diverse.
Yes.
Diverse in language,
Yes.
diverse in culture community, but the signing, that remains consistent.
I need to ask, like right now, sign language has different dialects, yes. I ask myself, with technological devices like cell phones, English software already developed, but what about sign language? How does it work?
I believe that if you want to include sign language, you must have an app. Understand? An app where deaf people can perceive signs for themselves. There is a company that has developed a sign language app with vocab,
Vocab.
a variety of vocab, a plethora of signs where children can learn sign language receptively. English has terminology. It does. And isiZulu has its own terminology. Why not sign language? Let's be creative and develop a sign language app. An app. I believe technology makes it possible. Now sign language is far reaching because more people are learning. It's spreading, which is perfect. I think technology is perfect because it creates visible accessibility. We've been using phones to text, but now we can make video calls and chat using sign language, free to express ourselves. We don't need to worry about English sentences or difficult texting. We can use sign language. Freedom of expression. Understand? People can see my face if I'm happy. With an English sentence, I would say Simphiwe is happy to show how I feel. It's not necessary. With video call, people can see everything. Using sign language, that's ideal. Technology has helped people relate better with one another indeed.
Yes.
Can you imagine if we didn't have technology? Imagine life without it.
Life would be lonely and dull, no rush to connect with dear friends or planning a party. This is the only way we can communicate. But I still miss meeting people physically. That is the only way.
Oh well, it's because of COVID.
Oh, wow.
I've learned many things, but anyway, I heard something like I am not sure if it's linked to sign language, being a coder, and coder, something like that.
Coda, which means children of deaf adults.
Yes.
But that in-depth information doesn't exist. Okay, so it means that a coda, the mother and father are deaf, the mother and father are deaf, and the children are hearing. Understand? It means children of deaf adults. Mother and father. And that issue is a stereotype. If I, for example, am a hearing person and you two are my parents, you two are deaf adults and I'm hearing, and we go together.
Got it. I understand.
Coda. It means children, a child, not yet an
Yes,
adult.
yes, I understand.
Yeah, it's
understand.
kids.
You mentioned deaf identity, because for me, I'm not sure. I'm not saying I'm not a staunch deaf person. I know sign language, yes, but we need to go deep about deaf identity. Please explain more.
Deaf identity is when a person can identify what they possess, the skill they have. Deaf identity is recognizing one's receptive ability, including one's limitation. I know I'm deaf. identity doesn't mean deafness only. One can have multiple identities. Some people are born and are deafened, and then after this, that's an identity issue because they are torn between being hearing and deaf. They have to navigate life ambiguously.
That's
You
me.
see, some people are born and raised as deaf, and they use sign language for the first time at a deaf school.
Yes, right.
They learn sign language. They know their deaf culture because of collective shared values, and they become confident. The third group isn't really deaf. They're like hard of hearing. They're born and raised as hard of hearing. They can hear. So these three groups, there's an identity spectrum. What's important is that you need to know who you are within the spectrum and choosing your deaf identity. Understand? In a group of people, which language do you use? What's your culture? Where do you come from? Identity is not singular. No. For example, with me, I don't have one identity. I'm black. I socialize actively. I'm deaf and I communicate using sign language. I'm a woman.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Some people are gay and lesbian, multiple
Lesbian,
identities. It depends which community you're involved in. Where is that community situated as well? How you adapt accordingly. You must know who you are first.
Yes,
If you know who
that's
you are,
interesting.
you can be easily adaptable. If you can't identify yourself, how will other people identify you?
That's true.
That's why it's difficult to have a single identity. What's important is knowing who you are. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? What's your culture? It's everything. And that makes up identity.
I'd like to know more about your studies. What's the difference between sociology and linguistics? What's the difference between these two subjects?
Yes, linguistics involves understanding language and its composition. What exactly it means to understand. Sociology investigates where language comes from, why is it established, and what group of people use the language. For example, I'm a woman and I must use language appropriate for addressing men. That's an example. I can't address men abruptly any way that I want to. It's the same with gay and lesbian people, how they sign so flamboyantly, you know?
Yes, yes.
And that's how they are. All gay and lesbian people communicate that way. But where does it come from? Why is it like that? Sociology is a group of people who use a language and how. Why? Why is it like that? Linguistics, on the other hand, investigates what a language is, what it means, and where it comes from. Sign language has 5 parameters, like proper handshapes. It has to be clear. You can't sign work like this with 4 fingers. It's incorrect. You need open 5 hand shapes and they have to be clear. That's how you sign work. Can you sign work like this? Maybe in American Sign Language, yes, there's a sign that has meaning. But here in SA, you can't. Because parameters are the
can't.
core
Yes,
of
true.
linguistics. But why? Why doesn't it make sense here? More intricate detail is involved, focused on language. Sociology focuses on communities, people, language use, and the reason why, and so forth. There's a difference, yes.
That's interesting. Does it mean you are the only one studying an MA? Are there others you're studying with?
Yes, there's several of us. Yes, there's several. There's Atia, and her focus is on poetry. There is Nyeleti. I believe that she has already graduated. There's Muriyechi, quite a few deaf people, but the numbers are small. It's a small group. I believe that many people are learning. Hearing people researching sign language, they've already published their research, widespread publications.
But deaf people need to contribute to
Yes,
the
we need more
language.
contribution.
Yes, precisely.
I wanted to ask you, sign language is important for deaf children. What's your advice to parents who have deaf children to stay a passion for the language? Many hearing parents don't have the passion for the language and neglect their needs. How can you encourage them?
I think it's really sad, truly. It's sad to see many parents of deaf children not learning sign language. But what's funny is that hearing parents have a higher percentage, 90% of
yes.
hearing giving deaf
Yes.
children birth, compared to deaf parents giving birth to deaf children, only 10%.
Small, interesting.
Parents
interesting.
are responsible to ensure their children have access to their first language. It doesn't matter if they're deaf or hearing. When a child is exposed to their native language, children can flourish even more. But if parents don't sign at all, children are exposed to their language adequately. Thriving through language,
Yes.
which enables access to university, becomes impossible. They struggle. Exposure to signed language becomes and begins with parents learning how to sign and teaching the child. Teach the child, not only teaching the child sign language, but build their confidence. Teach them about their culture. Encourage them that being deaf is not a misfortune. The child can flourish through language. It will enhance their self-esteem. My observation from hearing parents is the child becomes shy. They don't want them to sign. They have
Yes,
no
true. Yes,
confidence.
That's true.
That's sad.
True.
That's why it's important for all parents, deaf and hearing alike, to encourage their children to learn sign language.
That's similar to my experience. I was born hearing and later became deafened. I grew up with both my parents using sign language, yes. But we weren't in sync. They were always in a rush, neglecting family life in favor of friends because they could chat with one another. My parents didn't understand. It's the same with family time. I always left them to chat on my phone or read a book because I felt misunderstood and uncomfortable. I always brought a friend so that I wouldn't feel left out and my parents would leave us to enjoy ourselves. But for me, it meant nothing. That's interesting.
What's interesting about a hearing family and me being deaf is that community using sign language doesn't exist. You'd spend time chatting with deaf friends using sign language, then you go back home and must lip read. Some people have difficulty signing while others are flexible. Some people are flexible signers while others struggle. Some people are oral.
It's like home signing.
Spot on.
Like work, go, city there.
Yes,
Yeah, true,
precisely.
true.
Most of us deal with this limited signing, which is better because they want to
It's true.
sign.
It's the same with the hearing family watching the news. And the deaf person asks, "What are you talking about?" They feel left out. The family doesn't understand. They think it's normal, like it's okay. But for me, it's not. It's the same as, like, for example, this happened to me. My mother and daughter were chatting using sign language. But my mother didn't understand because she was using outdated signs. She got angry when she taught new signs
Yes,
because modern signs are tough for her. She's struggling. What must I do? It's interesting.
Like she's using Bantu sign language from way back, like this.
Exactly.
Teaching modern signs is a bit difficult because they know the signs from way back, not the slang of today. It's very detailed. There's different signs.
Like now, for example, Larato mentioned trying to teach her parents. She started with the basic signs, like baby
Yes,
signs, and you grow
yes.
from there. It entails signing, socializing. You need to
Yes.
cover all aspects, including workplace communication and so forth. It's not one thing, it's a lot of
True,
things, including the
true.
workplace communication. Now parents are stuck because the child has grown up. And they need to create
That
a
is
bond, which is
true.
important.
True.
And signing helps. Signing helps to create that bond.
True.
We must encourage parents to learn sign language, not only the language, but they must understand what it means to be deaf.
Yes,
What does
exactly.
deaf culture mean? What the
Yes.
language means? And the community, how many deaf people have achievements? If people don't see deaf people achieving things, what are they going to do?
Yes.
Parents are responsible, not just the child. We need to fix that. The parents are responsible to ensure the child's successful future. Parents are fully responsible. You understand?
I want to ask you about terminology like disability. I'm deaf, yes, and I can't speak, yes. But it's people who call me disabled. How should I feel? I think we need to teach them.
That's a very in-depth issue, yes. I think that most people who are deaf accept themselves as deaf.
Yes.
It falls under the umbrella term of disability because it's a broad category, which makes the government aware of the growing numbers, not only focused on deaf people. Many people think that blind people belong to one group. They like
Yes.
sticking together as blind people. Wheelchair users have their own category. Each classification has different needs. Their needs are different. Are the needs of deaf people the same as blind people? No, they're different. Deaf people need an interpreter more, while blind people need a walking stick and braille more. Wheelchair users need access to the door and the toilet. The lifts must work properly. They are separate categories, but together they become stronger. You understand? As a tight unit, there's more funding and more investment, but this can't be achieved in isolation. Understand? Is it enough? That's why we can't categorize as disabled. But I believe that each class doesn't say, I'm disabled, therefore I can't do it. They are able. Togetherness. And that's the arising issue. Understand?
What's difficult about the disability issues involving deafness, like disability has different types: physical, wheelchair users, blindness. So for me to say I'm disabled just doesn't feel right, because what if I want to apply for a job, for instance, or apply for something in sports because their form says disabled? So I'm disabled. So I apply because I'm disabled, right? I apply. But they say, no, you're not disabled. I have a normal body, just that I can't hear. So I want to know if I, as a deaf person, am involved in that category, huh?
I mean, that's why I said previously the government does not fully understand what it means to be deaf. Remember that we, deaf people, are distinguished by our language. We use sign language, but physically we are fine. We can progress and do things. However, we have a language barrier, particularly with hearing people when communicating. That's it. People communicating or teaching is not enough. The government doesn't have a clear comprehension. We need to teach them that we as deaf people are distinct, yes, but our needs are different. We have different needs, but the government doesn't perceive and fully understand. No, that's why we're sidelined and told, oh, you're blind, you can't. No, you're not a wheelchair, you can't. We all can. We need access, that's all.
That's true.
In addition to other things.
That's true.
So maybe I can say I'm disabled. I'm deaf and disabled. Maybe we can say that.
No, hang on. Hearing people see us as disabled because they think we're incompetent, but we are able. We are able. Understand? Do hearing people think about sign language? Do
No,
they? Majority
don't. They don't.
Who is more disabled? Who?
It's them.
It's
It's
them.
them. Perfect. I agree with you.
Blind people can read Braille well. Can people with vision read Braille? They can't.
No, they
Blind people
can't.
can read. So who's more disabled?
It's them.
It's them. When society sees people living with disability, they consider them a problem while they see themselves as perfect.
See?
That's what society sees. Sorry, you're disabled and we shove you aside. But that's not true. Yes, we can. Our needs are different. Our needs, that's
true.
it.
That's
They must
true.
all be
I agree with
incorporated. Reasonable accommodation.
Do you have any advice for the deaf community if they want to study or achieve their career paths? Any advice?
Yes, I think now is the time for deaf people to change and not rely on hearing people while making excuses that they can't. No. As you can see, technology is available. People have skills and different abilities. We are responsible to ensure we achieve these goals. We must not give up. It's hard work. We mustn't rely on hearing people for help. No. Yes, hearing people can help, but we also need to do it ourselves.
Absolutely.
That's how we'll achieve our goals.
You see? You see, everyone? Listen to her. Take her advice.
Do the same, please. Enjoy and thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Bye. See you soon. Same time, same place. Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.